Welcome to the Independent Workforce, the podcast where we explore the now and the future of work through the lens of temporary employment, such as freelancers, contractors, fractional experts, you name it. Here we speak with CEOs, recruiters, founders, and industry leaders about how they work with independent talent, the wins, the challenges, and the lessons learned. My name is Yurii. I'm growing the freelance market at FreelancerMap, an international platform that's been connecting top independent professionals with companies for over 20 years. And my guest is Nir Melamud, Head of Partnerships and Investments and ThinkUp, Managing Partner at Tech Investor Club, founder of FreshStart, and startup ecosystem builder with over 20 years of experience helping startups go from idea to fundable business, who works with founders on investor readiness, go-to-market, and scaling. So welcome, Nir.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Super happy to talk to you. I truly believe that startups and freelancers and solopreneurs have a very, very similar mindset. And the moment I met with you, I was thinking it would be an amazing conversation to learn more about how exactly those ecosystems are connected, how they work together, how they get the most talents. Because always you need to work fast, you need to deliver best results. It's a little bit different from corporates, and we'll definitely talk more about it. So walk me through your professional journey and what role do you play in this freelance ecosystem today?
Amazing. So again, thank you, Yuri. So I had the chance to found two companies. One 20 years ago, a startup, 5 years, ran it, then closed it. Um, then I joined a startup, a service-oriented company in the media advertising space. And in the last decade, I had the chance to support early stage founders in their business strategy, go to market, and investment readiness. So fundraising. Also had the opportunity to invest in few that did well. Also invested in few that didn't, which is totally normal. And I joined or partnered with a Norwegian fund about in 2020. Mostly in the space of mobility, renewable energy, clean tech, ocean tech. I had the chance to be a board member in one portfolio company there. Also joined and ran Angel Investor Club, which is basically private people investing first checks in early stage startups. Ran it for 3 years. And in the last 2.5 years, fully committed to ThinkUp. And ThinkUp is an all-in-one platform that supports people who have startup idea to build something meaningful, something that matters. If you want to look at it as the place between I'm seeing a problem, something is wrong, something doesn't work, I want to maybe solve it, and to a point where this is a real startup now. So structuring it all. So a lot, and talking to you, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about freelancers and how they kind of work together with startups. A lot of freelancers sit on amazing ideas, patterns, they see insight from client work, right? And most of the time they don't necessarily have the structure way to build it, or maybe even do something in parallel before quitting their jobs, maybe. So that's the gap we're trying to solve.
Yeah, to your point, I have so many conversations with freelancers who are entrepreneurs and startup founders in the heart, and they always have some side projects or some idea they wanted to try, or maybe they were having working with a client and they have something to build. And sometimes I know that freelancers are starting startups within big organizations, because every new project, every new thing that companies are trying, it's also kind of a startup. So
Right.
I totally get what you're talking about. So let's dive deeper into this nitty gritty of how does it work. And I'm curious, it's also my personal question, what role good hiring plays in startups journey. At what point people should start hiring, and how much is it important for startups?
Hiring in general or hiring freelancers?
Both. Let's
Both.
focus on
Right. Yeah,
hiring
yeah.
in general, and then we'll mhm.
Great. So, so I believe every startup starts with with a founding team. So either solo entrepreneur or maybe a co-founding team. And they usually take in expanded roles within. So some have business acumen, some have tech acumen, and then they kind of complete different tasks, operational tasks, etc. Once um, once the validation process is done, and you need to shift from I would say, a prototype, early stage prototype, to something more meaningful, an MVP or a commercial MVP that you can then present and charge for. This is usually the place or the point of time or the milestone where people need to hire other people. Usually full-time employees would be the first ones. But then in parallel, hiring freelancers for sure. That's the point of time.
What is the difference between hiring full-time and freelancers? Why I'm asking, because, for example, if you're an established company, you have like decades of being there, or okay, at least 5 years being there, it's already kind of like saying that most likely you will survive, most likely will continue growth. And when people are joining startups, it might be more interest in payment, but also it's not always the thing. And it's also harder to find people who are really ready to commit to a startup, who believe in the idea, who believe in people. So from your example, from your experience, what is the difference between hiring full-time experts and hiring freelancers for startups?
Yeah, so you mentioned one key point, and then if you are able to hire a good enough talent that believes in your vision, because it's still a vision phase, you didn't prove anything just yet, and bring them on. And that's sometimes hard, and that's exactly where freelancers kind of complete the picture. You can tap into experienced workforce or experienced talented, get them in, and it kind of completes areas where you cannot hire a full-time employee. Now, to discuss or to delve into the differences, especially hiring early, um, it's almost like the co-founding marriage thing. It's more than just the talent. It's about the character, how you work together. The culture of this early entity that are formed, that is formed, and sometimes it's not a clear cut when you meet someone that this is the one you want to marry to for decades. Uh, and on the other end, the freelancer hiring creates a flexibility, agility, which fits the startup space, and it could be a testing period for later, maybe a more deeper engagement. So sometimes we see that, and by the way, in ThinkUp, we can delve into that later. We do hire freelancers, and some of those were shifted along the way to being a full-time employee. So this is a dynamic that works pretty nice in many places. Or you find through the work, through real life tasks, that maybe something doesn't connect there. Maybe it's a great talent, but the culture doesn't fit. Expectation from both sides doesn't meet. And this is exactly how you can find it out without making without taking too much risk, I would say.
I would say that it also serves like an insurance for a startup team, because, for example, if you hire someone as a freelancer and later on you can switch into like this full-time collaboration, it's still kind of like a trial period, that you try. If it works, if everything is good, then you continue. It's something that you have in corporates and companies, that you have like from 1 to 3 months and sometimes six months is like onboarding period. But
Yeah.
I feel like in startup, you cannot allow people to join and sit and read documents. You need them to join and start working right away, because it just doesn't work that way. And I'm curious,
Absolutely.
from your experience, what is the percentage between like having internal and external teams in startups?
It really depends. It depends on on many factors. Some are external and some are internal. In our case, for example, the ratio was about just a little bit less than third of the employees in the company. So I don't know, depend on the number of people we had. So if we had eight, we had about two freelancers onboarded. And when we are 14, we have a little bit more than that. And also there are, for me, there are different types of freelancers engaged. Let me get there a little bit. Because there are the ones that I talked now about, like the 2 versus the 8, or the 3 versus the 10. We consider them almost as full-time employees.
Yeah.
So they are not like an external agency that they get, jobs or tasks, and they need to deliver it on time. And they're really in our, internal company meetings and so on and so forth. And on the other hand, we have external agencies that could be one single solo freelancer, just saying. So, and this is different kind of mindset. And so we have maybe more. So if I take those two types and tie them together, maybe half and half,
Okay.
freelancers and full-time employees.
Where do you personally at ThinkUp and also founders that you are working with, where do you most often see using freelance? Like for what tasks? Are you use them as like dealing with some minor things, like maybe, doing some adjustments, like creating a logo or something like that? Or maybe you sometimes tap into their like consultancy experience and get like years of them working on other projects into your team. Like how do they improve the teams that you are, improve your core team?
Uh, ThinkUp and also the ones that I work with or used to work with, it's always a hands-on deep dive into the core of the startup. So and it's across the what is called departments. So it could be marketing. So either marketing itself or product marketing or whatever. It could be DevOps, deep dive, core development. It could be product, which is based on research and validation and about the customer and designing, conceptually designing the product. All of these could hold freelancers that are paid externally, but are considered almost as internal full-time employee, for sure.
Yeah. Am I hearing it correctly that you are kind of like hiring not just extra hands, but their experience mostly?
Sure. It's always the combination. So we have, for example, designer in our company at the moment, that has 20 years of experience, super talented. We are trying. In our case, we started desktop oriented, and now we shifting into mobile because eventually
Yeah.
95% our traffic is mobile. We knew it from the beginning, but we decided to have a focus. Having said that, this designer is I would say a freelancer designer, which is a master in mobile and conversion, and this is exactly how we enjoy her talent, her experience. Absolutely. No, and she's also hands-on. So she
Yeah.
does, the conversion, the shift.
I know that if we are talking about like established organizations, they can sometimes allow themselves to make mistakes. I mean, like they can spend time like for 3, 6 months as hiring someone full time just to understand that it was not the right person and then to start this process over and over again. I truly believe startups doesn't have this time. So how do you ensure that you are hiring right freelancers? How do you know that they will be a good addition to a team, especially in like being part of the core team?
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time in thinking about it before we hire. We start with referrals. Usually it's a referral starting point.
Hmm.
If we don't have the right referral, Then we do have an HR external, by the way, another freelancer external HR function that helps us find other candidates, and um, we do a thorough onboarding, I would say, or interviews session until we decide. It takes us some time, usually 2 months, 3 months for sure, to decide on the specific case. And on the other hand, we do have some. So in the usually it doesn't. Usually we so far, luckily for us, and for most of the, by the way, the startup that I used to work with, usually it works. And when it doesn't quickly, by the way. Like after 2 months or so, 3 months, not necessarily 6 or 8 months period, we cut things. I actually just had one from the business development side of ThinkUp. Something looked good at the beginning. We took the time to assess. Then we started working, and something there didn't work. Something didn't follow, and we had the opportunity to say thank you and continue.
And I feel like it was also easier because you didn't have like this kind of like full-time contract and all the things, and contract ended. Yeah, okay, sorry, we're not working, or maybe tasks were not delivered. You say like, yeah, okay, we're going with another person. So I feel like it's also about the speed.
Yeah, and it also works both ways. I mean, also for the startup, for the freelancer, it's a kind of um, eventually it's a kind of it's a match thing, and it needs to fit for both sides.
This episode of The Independent Workforce is brought to you by FreelancerMap, the home of freelancing. Whether you are looking to hire top freelance talent fast or a freelancer ready to find your next big project, FreelancerMap connects the right people with the right work. No endless job boards, no guesswork, just direct access to verified experts and opportunities across the globe. Visit freelancermap.com and start building your next success story today. And you also mentioned very, very important thing about having external HR freelancer, because sometimes companies think that they either have to hire themselves or hire expensive recruiting company. And they don't know sometimes that there are real freelance recruiters who pretty much do the same job, sometimes even better, and you don't have to pay all this extra costs of maintaining a company. You are just paying for the freelancer, and they are also invested in specifically your project because you are one of the clients that they cherish and they want to help you as much as they can. I feel like every startup or like companies who doesn't have their internal HR, they have to also remember about this part. And for the startup, how hiring affect fundraising, delivery, go-to-market? I know it's very, very important. At least I feel so. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, how hiring right people, specifically freelancers. We can also talk about the core team, but specifically freelancers. How does it move you forward?
It's part of the, again, it really depends on how you look at freelancers. In my cases, we look at them almost as full-time employees. So naturally, they affect the core element of the startup. They are part of the core. It's not a task-oriented relationship. We expect them to be engaged. This is part of the assessment we are doing early in the process. So to see if they can commit themselves to being, I would add another layer here, emotionally involved with their vision, with what we build, with what we try to do outside for founders or for people with idea. And then the whole conversation and the way we see them is they are core to our success in go-to-market, in fundraise. We still don't fundraise in this specific case, but in other cases, it does. If you want to take it, let's flip it for a second. Interesting. So I was a mentor, brackets, freelancer, for early stage startups in their fundraising processes, right? So I know it from the other way
Yeah.
around, and I hope that I had a chance to support and kind of deliver value to those who succeeded to fundraise, and by the way, also to those who didn't or couldn't. Sometimes this is also something that filters and save a lot of time and money and effort if the story is not coherent, if you're not investment ready, then you wasting time and really your soul on meeting people and getting the no's and without any real chance. That's something that if you can save from people and kind of spur them to do something else or to reevaluate their current status, it's also a value, I believe.
How do you make this assessment that you were talking about? Like, what is something that other startup founders need to take care about and keep in mind when hiring freelancers?
Um, First of all, they need, again, in my view, they need to understand. First of all, there's the talent and the references. I mean, it's like the first barrier. If they, and by the way, if they fit to the specific role that you expect them to complete, and that's maybe so. What I would do, what I would suggest to early stage founders to be super clear or ready before they hire full-time employee, but more importantly, freelancers, is to define exactly what they're looking for, like deeply, like in how is their interaction with the other parties. Now, don't get me wrong. In early stage startup, the borders are blurry. It's not like a corporate where people have the roles, and if someone is doing someone else's role, it's a kind of getting into their space, and there's could be a tension thing. No, that's not what I mean. But as a starting point, in startup, you do expect those kind of overlapping, working together, exploring together, and then deciding together environment. But you should start see there's a fit, a core, like a high level fit for for meeting for the role that you defined and with the talent and expertise that the freelancer brings. So yeah, it's super important. That's the number one uh, advice. And then afterwards, culture, chemistry.
You know what I hear sometimes from external, like bigger organizations, that they hire freelancers and they expect them to be like full-time workers, still without paying for insurance, like health and extra benefits. And what misconceptions do startup teams might have, or have about freelancers?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're seeing or what you're projecting to. Um, I would say that payment for early stage founders are limited in the resources, that's for sure. Um, and paying for external party um, is sometimes confusing because what you don't take into account when you see an hourly rate, for example, is exactly what you pointed to, which is uh, there's no employer-employee relationship with all the benefits, etc., that you would have once you hire someone, and it might seem like an expensive high hour
Yeah.
rate. Um, Nevertheless, I think that eventually getting someone who may be a little bit expensive, but in this format of freelancers could be the right and cheap way eventually. Yeah, because um, then the shift to converting freelancer, if that works for both parties, yeah. But once you do the shift it is fixed. It is fixed. Usually the price or the salary you pay is benchmarked with what happened outside. It makes sense for both parties. There's the compensation with options or other mechanism that is like the benefit of on top of the salary, and then it is fixed. What it does, yeah, it might cost you a little bit more in an hourly rate at the beginning, but then it's a cheaper learning curve that you pay for sure.
Yeah, and I also believe that to a point that when you are hiring freelancers, there is much faster onboarding and as to a point about the learning curve. So they're ready to be there for you, like from the day one. Of course, they need to better understand like what exactly you're building and what is their task, but they don't need you to guide through all the ideas, to create them a specific role, to give them the descriptions. Here is what you do, here is what you don't. Just give them a task. You just, hey, here is a goal. Here's what you need to accomplish. Do it, and then they are doing it because they're experts. And you told me so many times already about hiring freelancers, and you told that it's mostly about referrals. And I believe that you get these referrals, like first of all from your current team, then you go maybe to your personal network. And I'm curious, like, how does it work? If, for example, you don't have referrals from your team, where do you go afterwards? What kind of networks or maybe tools or platforms, like where do you find freelancers outside of referrals?
Yeah, so specifically us, we don't go to external platform, even though I know, and in my past I did. I mean, there are different, global platforms that you can find either through Fiverr or Upwork or freelancers.com and so on. Um, what we prefer at the moment, at least, early stage, relatively early stage, is is to have either from our team networks, for sure, number one. Then we have our uh, personal network where, on LinkedIn or other resources that we post our requirements and then we get some insight. Um, um, this is mostly it. This is mostly it. Sometimes very early, but we did that. We reach out to someone who popped up.
Hmm.
And that I'm saying that to encourage freelancers to spend some time being there, exposing their work. It shouldn't be like a heavy, a post, super articles, super deep things that takes a lot of time in that you don't have in your daily, routine. It should be just to be out there, and if it's a more of a tangible thing that you can expose, especially if you're a designer, especially if you're a product manager, especially if you are a marketing savvy, I would share it with the world. And it shouldn't be super professional, but if it's constant and what you consider professional, I'm not talking about what I'm talking about when I'm saying professional, I'm talking about the post doesn't need to be professional, but the outcome should highlight
Yeah.
your expertise.
Yeah, I recently read the sentence in the book that if you are not visible, you are invisible, which is kind of like, duh, not visible is equals invisible. But I feel like people are still forgetting, like from both sides, from freelancer sides, they forgot that they have to be active anyhow, because that's exactly how you pop up on radars, and that's exactly how you get hired. And also from hiring side, people also think that they will post a project and then, of course, I'm not talking about specific platforms like FreelancerMap. If you post project there, people will go there because there are freelancers and they are waiting for freelancer project. But they think that they will go to some like general job platform, post a project for freelancer and get a freelancer, the right fit. No, it doesn't work that way. You will get all kinds of opportunities, because there are so many people who are searching for this, even on LinkedIn. But exactly, also to your point, that tapping into these networks, because if you meet one freelancer, this freelancer most likely has friends. Their friends has friends. That's how it works. Because, freelancers won't survive by themselves. They're always part of like some kind of closer community or a bigger community. So I feel like when you are establishing relationships just with one good freelancer, basically you are opening the door for like hundreds of good freelancers. And it's also something that people are not even thinking about. They think, oh my god, I need to build my network of 100 freelancers. No, you have to meet just one freelancers and be good with them and build relationships, and then you have access to all this network.
Exactly. And I would say, and I will add two things here. The first one is with freelancer, be generous. Be as a freelancer with other freelancers, be generous. Um, um, Make it paid forward. Recommend. When people recommend me, I usually feel obligated to recommend them. Totally honest, and this is kind of the way I work, and and I'm happy to do that, not because of anything, just it just being nice to others, and it comes back to you. That's kind of a one philosophy. The second thing is. We're not in a a marketing social thing, but um, there's two things that would be aware when you post something outside, right? And the first one is try to tie try to tie a value to what you project. So, for example, just to give you an example, so when I was in Vienna and I had a key speaking yeah, just a week ago or 10 days ago, I'm not just saying I was in Vienna in that kind of in that conference and I had the opportunity to talk to I don't know how many people. I also add what I talked about and what are the key insights that I tried to deliver. And even someone who didn't, wasn't there, can maybe relate to what I tried to talk to about, and that's one thing. And the second thing, so think about that. What you learned from the project, what you had in, what was the challenge, what did you solve, what did you find out, insight. And the second thing is the mass of things. So it's not about the specific post, but rather when you come to a point where you have like I don't know 20, 30, 50, 100 posts over the year, it becomes a mass, critical mass that when someone hits your post and try to delve deeper into who you are, then it waits there.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes total sense because when you are, projecting something more than like, hey, was a speaker, yay, good for me, but more like you're still bringing extra value and sometimes even the small tips of things that maybe people start thinking and at least wanting to connect with you. And when you connect, like it's serendipity place. Everything can happen. So the first thing is like just go and connect. And we are living in the AI age, and there is a lot of AI stuff and automation and things. So I'm curious, from your startup founder and investor and also an expert, how does it look like? How the hiring process, both for full time, for core employees, and also for freelancers, looks like for startups with this AI stuff?
Yeah, so we at ThinkUp are totally based on AI, and we have an engine behind that works with all the models, etc. So we're deep into there in our product, but to be honest, we are still not there in terms of hiring processes and embedding AI processes or tools in our. We're a little bit old-fashioned, maybe because the mechanism that I talked about earlier. So it's mostly focused on referrals, mostly around uh, our network. So when you start there, um, we meet usually face to face or Zoom to face or something like that, and we assess. We do the assessment, and maybe there could be tools that could help us evaluate better. I'm sure there are things out there that are starting to be, part of the processes in many, many cases. I guess that since we, as a small, unlike corporates that has, I don't know, in every point of time they could hire tens or hundreds of people. They need to have a structure mechanism, and embedding tools there could save a lot of time, effort, money, resources, so on and so forth, and kind of be also the validation layer to what the HR or whoever interviewed had in mind. We are small, agile. It's always one or two hiring per period of time. So it's embedding AI is not there yet, to be honest.
If you were building a startup from scratch today, so for example, right now you have an idea and you start building a startup and you start assembling the team, which roles would you will definitely hire full time, and which roles will you definitely hire as freelancers?
Um, well, I would say that the managerial, as you go between, you know, task oriented, it's not a task, it's like a role defined, but hands-on role versus management. I would definitely say that the manager should be full-time versus the others. That's one kind of a key. But to be honest, I'm not sure I can draw the line in a sharp kind of defined binary way. I think it's really depends on the case, on the person, on the involvement, on the chemistry, on their commitment.
You know,
I
I
can see, yeah, I can see both sides. I can see having freelancers deeply involved.
I'm very happy to hear that, because it's amazing that you are already like having this blurred line between like having like kind of full time and external, which means that the main thing that they are experts and the main thing that they are committed and the main thing that they are delivering. And it doesn't matter whether they're sitting on your payroll or you are hiring them as contractors. The main thing that you are have the same vision, you agreed, you're working together, and then life will happen and you will see what is going next. And I'm curious, if you could change one thing about how startups work with freelancers to improve this collaboration, what would it be?
Um, it, I would say that um, structuring the processes, the work processes, the defining at, at the beginning, at least when the freelance is onboarded and starting to work. Sometimes it's very easy to lose the talent or to miss the right way of working because there wasn't alignment in terms of what is expected from both sides, by the way. And when you structure the process, you definitely, and this could be, by the way, part of the assessment part, yeah, before hiring the freelancer. Um, Doing this structured, sometimes I would say even documented, and early stage founders find it very hard to document stuff. And sometimes even document things, maybe over the email, maybe having it's written creates a much more decent or alignment between the two parties. Yeah, for sure. That's what I would advise to early stage startup founders to do.
Is it clear you understand where you want to go? Is it clear you understand like what are steps to take? Like not exact, but like the general idea. I feel like the better the collaboration will be. And Nir, I wish to have the sky is the limit, but time is the limit. So the final question, what advice would you give to startups just starting to use freelancers?
Yeah, so I believe the main number one advice I would say is to get help from other founders on how they hired founders, I mean freelancers, especially if it's the first time you're doing that. Um, the key thing here is that you're not talking to first timers. Usually when you're freelancers, you already been engaged with interaction with other companies, customers, clients, and you come very much prepared. And if I'm projecting my answer to the founder, I believe that you need to kind of understand the interaction. And when one party is experienced and you are maybe not that experienced, you need to level up your the way you describe the role, the way you describe the relationship, the way you kind of seed something that maybe be growing or later in the process, meaning converting them to being maybe a full-time employee. That could be eventually a good outcome, maybe sometimes for both sides. Sometimes not, but seeding it early makes sense.
It's also a very good point because you reminded me that sometimes freelancers can teach you actually how to work with them. And I remember two of the conversations that we had previously. It was Nuri Lopez, and he told that in Microsoft, freelancers hire freelancers. So they basically build this team that freelancers, they know what their needs are, and you don't really have to explain them how to do this. So basically they help you hire right freelancers and deal with them and work with them. So they're, executing on the same level. And also I remember John Younger told like a long time ago that you can hire kind of like the board of freelancers to help you develop processes of how to hire freelancers. So and to your point, like go just ask questions from people who do that and they will help you. So it's like the easy peasy way to do that. And last but not least, name two people I should reach out to talk about the independent workforce.
I would say one great guy I know from long time ago is Andrew Senduk. Uh, he used to work in Workmate, and he's a great company. And now he's written two books, and he's well known in the Asian part of the world, in the VC part and investments and startups. I definitely recommend talking to him about his view on independence work, for sure. Uh, and another close to my heart person is she's called Inbal Rahav. She's a go-to-market expert, and I definitely believe that talking to her, she's by the way in charge on the Israel-Austrian relationships at Chamber of Commerce. She has a vast experience in working as a freelancer, but also with freelancers, and I definitely believe that you will find lots of insights talking to her.
Got it, Nir. Thank you so much. And thank you a lot for typing just a little bit more, just sharing your like huge amount of experience about how exactly startups can hire and also benefit from working with freelancers. And as we started this conversation, I feel like we have like freelancers and startup founders have really very, very similar mindset. And also sometimes freelancers are becoming startup founders, and sometimes startup founders are becoming company organization, like huge companies founders. Like it's like the growth way. And I think that the more people like follow the approach that you have, that you are not seeing a line between like full-time and freelancers. You treat them as expert they are. The more people understand it, the far off we will go. And I really, really hope that more and more people will connect with you, talk to you, and learn from you. And by the way, what is the best way to connect with you?
It could be either through LinkedIn. I think that's the most direct, just connect. And I would say a final word, if you're in the phase of having, an idea, or you want to structure something for your client, in both ways, I do recommend kind of registering and kind of looking at what we do in ThinkUp.global. And if you find it interesting, you can reach out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
feel free to do so.
Nir, thank you so much. And yes, people, if you are building this, go check up ThinkUp and connect with Nir. And see you in the startup and freelance industry. And for listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Independent Workforce. I hope you've taken one step closer to working smarter with freelance talent. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to learn even more and share it with your colleague. And remember, the future of work is now.